Tara Pawlak, SVP of Marketing at Revenue Grid. Tara, please join me here at the stage.
Hello. Hi, Pete.
Well, hello. It's Pep, actually.
Pep. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries. Well, how is revenue intelligence business going?
It's going well. It's very, very busy. It's a very busy industry. Lots of education, informative, and really understanding how to best help customers. So
I think revenue intelligence is one of those very few categories where they manage to make the word intelligence work. Because then there are so many other ones that are this intelligent, customer buyer intelligence, where it's like you roll your eyes. But this one's stuck. This one is, I think it's now legit.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? It's data plus insights and intelligence. So that's what we all need.
Yeah. And so I'm gathering Revenue Grid had a pretty solid year last year.
Yeah, we just like everybody else, we had our struggles, right? And challenges. And I was on a little bit earlier, and I think Olga was talking about a few of those, and something I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But really, coming down to ICP is really important to us, and digging in to see who's honestly most enjoying our product and focusing on them, right? We serve B2B SaaS, of course, but we all know that's been a tough market a little bit. So we have some really happy customers that are well outside of that. And so that's really kind of where one of our pivots has been in the last few months, at least.
Yeah. Did you guys recently raise money by any chance?
Not last year, but prior to that, we are Series A. So,
because usually what I hear, why I'm asking is usually when a company's, we need to, we're focusing on our ICP. It's usually because they raise money and need to find new growth.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I also think it goes to like everything else that's happening in the market. That's what usually happens, right? With the series and the funding, and it's not just repeatable. It's like, how do we scale this and how do we do this yesterday? But now I think it's also around efficiency and productivity and really knowing your sweet spot in the market, because you can't be everything to everybody. And a lot of brands get kind of stuck there.
Cool. Well, Tara, very excited to hear your three things, and then we'll chat after.
Sounds good. Awesome. All right. Well, I am putting a stopwatch. I am a talker. So first bet here, I'm calling what matters most. And I kind of started to allude to this, but really doubling down on what matters most to your customers and your prospects. So a great way to understand this is having a benchmark, having a baseline. And if you don't have this, or you haven't been doing this for a little while, my suggestion is really to start launching a survey, one to customers and one to prospects, and asking them. And then also to that kind of ICP conversation, segmenting this about around industries, company size, personas is a huge one, because if you're selling to a big buying committee, what matters most and what's valuable to them can be very different. And then if you bring it to a tactical, let's say you know what that is now, some things that you could do that I would place big bets on here are conducting webinars, trainings, and courses. And there's a time and the place for thought leadership, but really pivoting to practical ways you could solve their problems as an organization. And so I use the term organization on purpose, not platform or service, because you also need to keep in mind that your customers and prospects are viewing you, how you could help them as a whole. How do you help them in their role? With their everyday life. Obviously, if it's a platform or service, you're actually providing something, but don't pigeonhole yourself into an event or a course that just has to do with feature or functionality. You might have something else to offer, like thought leadership or advice that's something that your company actually went through. Kind of what we're all doing here today is sharing insights that we have. Another way you could focus on what matters most is email marketing. And I can't say this enough, is segment. You can go down to persona and engagement stage. There's obviously tools out there that help us with the repurposing of content and making that go longer by persona and value. And there's a lot of different ways that you could do this. And how you would measure this, I would say all the things I mentioned have different measurement, right? But engagement is huge. Engagements in your trainings or your webinars. Email marketing, of course, that one's kind of a little bit easier to measure. But at the end of the day, it's really about your customer feedback, your retention rate, and NPS that you can measure this. And why I think this is a good bet is you're in business because of your customers. So if you're not focusing on what they believe is important and what's valuable to them today, then what are we doing as marketers, right? We assume that we know what this is, but it's also really important to understand that it evolves and changes over time. And we all know that people buy from people. So we as marketers are in the business of understanding that. So that's my first bet, what matters most. My second one is called get out of the funnel. And what I mean by that is, as marketers, we measure by funnel all day, every day, right? We need to. This is our bread and butter, right? It goes all the way to close one in revenue. But go-to-market teams, and as part of that, we need to understand our business last year, refine our ICPs sometimes, or constantly challenge it to make sure, is this the best place that we are spending our time, money, focus, and resources, and not being afraid to say no. So an example is somebody internally asks you, why aren't we going to that event? Or I've seen that a lot of our posts on LinkedIn are about this. You have to be able to say, this is not where our core focus is. If they want to come talk to us, great, come in the funnel, but maybe marketers are not being spread so thin there. We need to know what works and what doesn't. And saying get out of the funnel is we measure the impact of what we're doing through a funnel. So the best example I would give you is paid and organic. We measure like this. This is how a lot of us look at the funnel. But I think the big light bulb went off for me a couple of years ago is just because you measure like that doesn't mean you need to operate like that. So you could understand really how is organic going, how is paid going, what are the lessons we learned from both? So could we possibly reduce our spend, which a lot of marketers are getting asked to do that, right? We're being more aware of our spend, and maximize organic results with the same or different level of effort, right? And so you constantly figure that out, but a lot of marketing teams are set up that the organic and the paid are held by different people or different responsibilities. And so I think that's a key bet. And so how you measure this, there's always a balance. Gwen, who was on before me, does a great job of the brand and demand conversation. But I would say the best way to measure this is ensuring your success metrics cover both. So you're going to, for say brand awareness, measure organic branded traffic, but you're also going to measure direct traffic or paid traffic, right? And making sure you're hitting your benchmarks there. But what's going up, what's trending towards the goals, and what's not. And really comparing and contrasting them down to what are our paid posts on LinkedIn about? What are our organic posts on LinkedIn as an example? And of course, you're going to measure also more your high intent channels. So that's a good way of course, breaking down the funnel. But really the lesson here is people don't buy in a funnel. We measure and we monitor in a funnel. But really the beauty comes from the lessons outside of the funnel and making sure that you realize that people don't come in directly through that way, right? There's all different ways that you interact with the brand and making sure your team is constantly talking about all the things that are happening across all. And why are we doing this bet? Why would I bet on this? Is really making sure that you're efficient all through the funnel, all the way to close one, and seeing lessons and learnings and sometimes failures all the way through there and what you can apply to be more productive as a team. So that's my second one. And the last one here I have is I have to do it. I'm a people leader. So betting on your people, invest in your team. And what I mean by this is marketers and the world is constantly looking at AI, right? We're all like, how can we adopt AI? I I think a lot with marketing comes down to, we all started with content creation, right? Repurposing a lot of that stuff. I'm sure like after the winter games, we'll have little video snippets that, the team will use AI to create. And that's just the beginning. And so the way I relate this to investing in your team in professional development is, it doesn't have to be, okay, our entire team is going to adopt this new tool and there's AI involved and this is how it's going to, be adopted and this is what we're all doing together, right? You can have individuals test and try different things depending on their role. And the measurement for that would look very different, right? Maybe the goal is being more efficient with their time. Maybe it's productivity. Maybe it's actually mental health. And yes, I said mental health. And that is just their way of accomplishing more, right? Because today it's really hard to be a marketer. It's really like the end-to-end marketer in whatever role that you're in. And so I think that's a really good way to also approach AI, especially with marketers not having huge professional development budgets now, but you could carve out a budget item for individuals on your team to use a specific project management tool that includes AI that helps be kind of an executive assistant to them and takes tasks from meetings, from conversations, and input that into your project management system. And that would actually help them be more productive, efficient with their time. And it's a way to really help evolve your team members. And it doesn't have to be this big organizational, we're going to adopt this. There's a time and a place for that, of course, depending on what you're doing with the AI and the data and all of that in there. But I think it's really a simple way to help grow your team and making sure that they are happy and they're productive. And I think it's the people that really grow a lot of the predictable marketing efforts out there. So why do this? Of course, you want to see the different measurements you have and goals by adopting it, but it's really to achieve a better way of working in 2024. So those are my bets.
Sounds like you're a people person.
Yes.
Can you please tell me a little more about solving organizational problems that you mentioned earlier? So is it that in your marketing communications, you don't, it's not just, here's a feature and that's that benefit.
Yeah.
You're thinking like a bigger picture of how this fits into your workflows, and elaborate, please.
Yeah, for sure. So I view this as providing value to your customers or prospects without expecting anything in return. So the best example of that is like, there's a lot of businesses, we have a land and expand model, right? Revenue Grid does too. But also understanding and asking them what challenges that they have within their organization, within their same role, and being aware of it and really becoming like a partner to them. Because it sounds so simple, but without asking, then you don't know. And I think sometimes when that pivot comes where you go to renewal and they're like, oh no, we've actually decided to do X, Y, and Z, it's almost a shocker. But if you understood that the challenges that the business was having overall, then it wouldn't be so of a drastic, oh my goodness, like you should know if the renewal is really where it's at least 90 days prior. So I think it's just a form of listening, learning, and asking your customers and prospects, really just understanding their business.
Sweet. Thank you so much, Tara.
Yeah, of course.
Everybody give Tara a follow on LinkedIn, and we'll see you on the internet somewhere.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Peace out.